Welcome, all fellow wannabes. Welcome to the show. I'm sipping on some Dr. Pepper. Did you hear that, bad boy? I know. Look at me. I got a can. I got a straw. I got the whole thing. It is me and Tristan Twitchell once again reconvening to discuss the biggest question: who would win? Who would win? And this one is kind of a curveball. You know, the past few times we've gotten together, right? We have talked about certain things with multiple outcomes. It's like, hey, out of 100 times, you know, this person wins. I can't remember what our Thor discussion was. You know, it's been a while ago now, but I think the general consensus was the last time we talked, Superman would win most of the time, right? Today we have a very interesting one. Who would win? Master Chief and the Arbiter or Predator? This has been we've been talking for literally 20 minutes about this because I feel like there was so much to flesh out, because the original idea was Arbiter and Master Chief versus Predator versus the Xenomorph. You know, like they show up. Yeah. They show up, the Xenomorph and Predator are going toe to toe. What does that situation look like? And this is all for fun, ladies and gentlemen. Like, if you have your opinions, throw them down in the comments. Obviously, that's what it's here for. It's YouTube, it's podcasts. Do your thing. You can throw your opinions in. Give us a detailed explanation of how you think that fight would go. And we're going to kind of maybe dip back into that whole Xenomorph thing, maybe a little bit later, you know, as kind of like a what if type situation. But I think we can agree that for the most part, this argument is going to be who would win, Master Chief and Arbiter or Predator. And I can't remember what his actual name is, but you know, we all know what Predator is. Yeah. So, Tristan, I feel like we got to basically, we kind of weeded out all of like the attributes and things as to, you know, who might win in certain situations. And I think we came to the same conclusion, but we never really said it. So we actually haven't had the argument and haven't come to the conclusion. And usually the good thing about this show, or, you know, this thing that we like to do, is usually one of us, just for the sake of conversation, will come up and we'll be the devil's advocate. Be like, yeah, but did you think about this? Or did you think about that? So no matter who we really want to win, it doesn't really matter, because we're going to take everything into consideration as much as we can. So let me paint a picture for you. Tristan, how are you, by the way? How are you feeling?
I'm great. How are you, buddy?
I'm doing good. I'm a little chatty. I'm a little more chatty right now because we actually just recorded the Halo project, which you can go view over on Game Club. You know, we're working our way through the Halo series. So I'm feeling good. I'm feeling warmed up. I'm feeling truly podcast worthy. I think, was this you that brought this idea to the table? These, you know, this matchup?
You know, I think it was. I think it was because I watched something. I can't remember what it was, but it had Predator in it. And I was like, man, that's a great character.
It truly is.
Yeah, the character itself is amazing. I was sitting there thinking, I was like, why don't they have him in other stuff? And it's like, well, he'd probably just murder everyone. That's probably why. And so I was like, well, who wouldn't he murder?
Yeah, true. And I think the best thing to do, I think, is to take characters that we hold near and dear to our hearts, right, and pit them up against, you know, put them in unlikely situations. Hashtag the Fets would win. They would. And you're lying to yourself. I'm sorry. You are lying to yourself if you think that Batman and Robin ever stood a chance. Like, they don't. I promise.
You're wrong.
I promise.
Batman, maybe. Robin, no.
Yeah, it's not happening. I mean, I think, what would we say? Like literally like 90 times out of 100, the Fets are winning that. You know, depending on what, sure. It's all depending on what gear Batman has on him at that time.
Exactly.
Because, I mean, you know, I do see there being certain times where Batman thinks to call in the old Batwing and bring it in, or the Batmobile, and have him run him over. Because, you know, I just played through Arkham Asylum. You know, me and Ethan Meister are going to be covering that on Game Club as well.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, we're going through the Arkham series. That's fun. But just search your feelings, you know, Skywalkers. You know it to be true. The Fets would win. So I'd like to run, you know, just kind of run down some kind of basic skills that all of our combatants have with one another. So, you know, or amongst each other. So I think realistically in this situation, the two characters that have the most in common are actually going to be Arbiter and Predator. And here's why. They both have camouflage, active camouflage. Now, we know for a fact that Arbiter has limited capabilities with his camouflage. He can only use it for a certain amount of time before it has to recharge. For the majority of the movie Predator, and I guess you could say he could have switched it off screen, but we get the idea that Predator can stay in that form of camouflage for quite a long time, which would make a lot of sense since he is the Predator, right?
For real.
We see him stalking his prey often.
Yeah.
So, you know,
and I would say the quality of the invisibility was better for Predator too. Because
Oh,
when
totally.
he stood still, he was gone.
Yeah, you can't
You know
see
what I
him.
mean? Whereas with Arbiter, it was more of that true camouflage, refraction, you know, warping.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, you could definitely. It's like, oh, there's something there. I mean, that's why Chief could very easily see him in Halo 3. He's like, oh, you know, he didn't even need the sensors. He knew right then and there that's where he is. That being said, we know that Arbiter and Chief are also similar in that they have limited sensory capabilities, you know, with their radars, right? You know, within a 15-meter radius, they can sense and you know, kind of motion detect where things are or where things are at.
And that's what it is. That's the important. It's a motion detector. So if Predator doesn't move, which he shows he doesn't have to.
Exactly.
A lot.
Yeah, no, totally. He is a master hunter. Now, it's hard because the Arbiter, by definition, is basically like the raw on the field, like leading the battle, leading the charge, and you know, kind of very much.
He is supposed to be the first guy to die.
Exactly, like literally the same version of, like, it's basically just a Covenant version of what Master Chief represents. You know, a superior, a superior combatant. Is virtually what, you know, can wield any weapon, can do anything, yada, 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 right? Predator is not I wouldn't call him that way, but he is more terrifying in the sense that he can play the stealth game, but he is a Hulk. I mean, he is a hulking person, and he's very confident and very proud in his skills because he wears little to no armor. Very susceptible to bullets and things like that. But we know for a fact that Predator can take a punch. He can, you know, I mean, he got freaking stabbed, you know, through, you know, we've seen him.
Yeah. He goes against Xenomorphs. Xenomorphs are not weak.
Yeah. I mean, and granted, you know, Xenomorphs, you know, seeing them go toe to toe and things like that, they take a beating as well, but we're not talking about them. We're talking about Predator. We wanted to figure out the best way to bring them in, but it's too much.
It's too convoluted.
It really is. And we just go down a rabbit hole, but we'll save it for the end. So in terms of skills, but you know, Predator kind of has a leg up on the Arbiter. And Tristan, would you care to go into detail onto why that is?
Predator has a leg up on the Arbiter because, like we said, with the camouflage, his camouflage is in every way, shape, or form is better than Arbiter's. It's cool that Arbiter gets it, but it's not even close. And he negates it almost immediately with the next thing on the list, which is his visor. You know, we don't have details as to exactly what he can see, but it looked like ultraviolet. It's looked like heat sensor. And it looked like other things that we just, you know, maybe don't have a handle on what it would even be to be given a name. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
No, yeah, totally. I mean, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, so he negates the Arbiter stuff altogether, and then, you know, he does have a big weakness in that he doesn't have any armor, but he knows he doesn't need armor because the weapons that he has, his shoulder mounted cannons, do damage.
Totally.
I mean, I don't think I've ever seen a Predator shoot that and it gets stopped. You know what I mean? It always blows a hole in something. It's like the BFG from Doom. It always blows a hole.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it is. I think for you know, it's a plasma cannon. I think for lack of which, you know, which in that type of situation, it really kind of puts both of our heroes really, because I think Predator's more of an anti-hero. It puts our heroes at a disadvantage because their shields are all plasma based, right? Now, I think an argument could be made. It's like, okay, well, is his plasma cannon, you know, is that similar or, you know, kind of akin to like a plasma rifle or a plasma pistol that we would have seen in Halo? I think it's more high powered personally.
For sure.
I think it's a completely, because it looks as like the more speed it picks up, or it almost seems like as soon as it gets shot out of that cannon, it picks up speed pretty gradually, and it looks like it expands a little bit. Whereas, you know, a plasma pistol, a fully charged plasma shot, it isn't going to penetrate anything.
No,
Um,
for me, it's like a water balloon versus a Nerf gun dart. You know what I mean? Like
totally.
it's just kind of how the charge shot from the plasma pistol, the plasma rifle bolts, nothing ever felt accurate or condensed and powerful with the Covenant until we got the carbine.
Yes,
So all
I
that
agree
other
with
stuff
that.
was just real big mass balls of goop
Yeah,
almost
and inaccurate.
splashing.
I mean,
Oh,
inaccurate. I mean,
wildly inaccurate.
there is a certain level of precision there to where you get the idea. I mean, it's almost like a sniper rifle.
Oh
Just
yeah.
with his
I mean
targeting
that
system.
laser sight. Whew,
Yeah, I mean,
whew.
once you're in there, I mean, it's over.
Mhm.
So I do think our heroes are put at a disadvantage. Now we know his plasma, Predator's plasma cannons on his shoulders are relatively slow.
Mhm.
Relatively put him in a kind of
By no means can he spray and pray.
yeah, exactly. I mean, it is. I mean, I would assume with that, you could even say it's like, well, if it's taking time, it's overheated. Essentially, is
Yeah.
what has happened to the cannon.
I
Is
could
that's
really
over
see that being like a 4 or 5 shot top max kind of thing.
totally. Like you need it for specific situations, and I do think
Mhm.
that with the picture we're trying to paint here is exactly, potentially the exact situation he would use something like that for. So we talked a lot about Arbiter and Chief. We've kind of already kind of started painting the picture for you a little bit that Predator is a more suited combatant to fight the Arbiter and Chief. Realistically, it's
Mhm.
just a matter of who he wants to choose. I think we're gonna kind of take you through the story and take you through what we think here in a minute. Let's talk about Chief for a second. So
Yeah.
Chief, and this is just for full reference, we are giving Chief 3 Covenant plasma grenades. We are giving him 3. He's fully stocked with grenades. He's fully ready to go. We're giving him a AR and a BR with full ammo, which means he has around 350 shots in the AR, and he has 117 shots, I believe, in the BR. So he has plenty of ammo. And we have established that Predator has very little armor. He is susceptible to being damaged, but he also is kind of a bullet sponge. So it's going to
Mhm.
kind of, play into that. But let's talk about Chief's abilities for a second. Chief, I think, is the closest thing you can get to Captain America in armor.
For sure.
I mean, do you think that's can you kind of
100%.
like
No, he's Captain America without the powers.
yes, absolutely. And
100%. He's
without the
got the
shield.
speed, the strength, the incredible reflexes, lightning fast reflexes, battle awareness. A lot of what made Captain America amazing and what makes Chief amazing is that they aren't really people anymore.
Yeah,
They're plain and simple soldiers.
they're
Period.
weapons.
They're weapons. That's
Yeah.
it. You put them in this situation, they don't know how to tie their shoes, but they know to catch that grenade and throw it back, or whatever the situation calls for. So
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think having Chief there, no matter how this played out, it would never be a total domination because Chief is so adaptable.
Yeah, and
No matter
he's just
what we
so
stacked against him, he is just good at fighting.
yeah, he's meant to that is what he's made for. And
Mhm.
like we were talking about, Chief is very in tune with his sensors. And the reason he's so in tune with it, it kind of goes into, like the character profile of what the Mjolnir armor really does. It connects all your brain functions together to where you can feel completely as a weapon, basically. It is your body is basically part of the suit at that point in a way. Arbiter doesn't really have that.
Mm-mm.
It's not the same. He hasn't been genetically modified to be whatever. He's just it's like literally like a primal natural selection with the Arbiter, to where he has been chosen to be the Arbiter because he is so, he led the
Mhm.
fleet and he did all the stuff. He
But
has
there is
achieved that
something to be
rank.
said for that. Arbiter proved he earned his spot. Chief
True.
didn't earn his spot; it was just given to him.
Yeah, that is true. Um, and it is kind of cool to kind of see there too how they mirror those arcs throughout the games and stuff
Hmm.
like that to make
Hmm.
them go there. But I think whenever comes down to blow by blow who would win, RB versus Chief,
Chief,
it's not even a competition, right?
not even
And
close.
but it is, like you said, there is something to be said for the amount of training.
Arbiter is no slouch.
No, he isn't. He is a force to be reckoned with.
I would put him up against multiple Marvel heroes and have him come up out on top.
Really? That's an interesting one. Like who? Name a few for me.
Okay, he would beat Hawkeye. He'd beat Black Widow.
Okay, easily.
Invisibility is a
definitely.
big deal.
Oh,
Invisibility
totally.
is a really big deal.
Even in short bursts.
I really think that he would put a good fight up against Captain America. Just because the range, Captain America can't do anything against his range.
And yeah.
And then Iron Man, Tony's just not going to know what's hitting him with those alien weaponry until it's too late.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hot take right there. Iron Man and Captain America.
I just think that's totally subjective. I'm just saying, I think that could happen.
I mean, you're not wrong, because I mean, I think Iron Man versus Batman, I think it's a clear cut, like, Batman wins, dude. Like,
yeah, there's not a contest. Batman always wins that.
Yeah, I don't think, so I mean, you make good arguments, and I mean, we're just gonna, I mean, we're using like basic, golden age Master Chief technology, golden age UNSC technology, where he doesn't have the thrusters yet. It's nothing like that. It's
none
basic,
of that extra crap.
Yeah, exactly.
No sprint.
No sprint. It's Halo 1 to Halo 3. So I'd like to kind of talk about Chief Spartan Enhancements a little bit, because I think we've done a pretty good job of talking about Arbiter and Predator, but we haven't done, I feel like we could, if there was one we could go into a little bit of detail on, it'd probably be Chief. So listen to this. Spartan Enhancements: carbide ceramic ossification. Bones are enhanced via grafting materials onto skeletal structures. Muscular enhancement lining. Muscles were enhanced, allowing them to work harder without tearing apart in Spartan skeleton. Pulmonary polymer lining. Increases oxygen intake and retention, helps process toxins from the air, and allows Spartans to breathe certain non-oxygen atmospheres for up to an hour. Corneal implants. Increases perception and grants increased night vision. Allows the Spartan to spot targets using active camouflage. Spot targets using active camouflage. Not because of his enhancements. Okay. Cardiac implants. Strengthens cardiovascular tissue and increases maximum heart rate to safely allow massive adrenaline flow without the risk of stroke or heart attack. Artificial pancreas implant allows a Spartan's body to extract the maximum amount of nutrients and carbohydrates from food with minimal waste. There is more, but just to kind of double down on the thing we said before, Chief has been modified to be a killing machine, untouchable.
Yeah, and I think a big thing too with this is Predator is a beast. He is a monster, but he is a hunter.
Totally.
Not a warrior.
Totally. Yeah, and I mean,
Chief is a warrior.
Yes, exactly. Like tried and true. Like
oh yeah.
And I mean, I guess that should go to, this is what makes this fight so interesting is you really stack up the primal nature of Arbiter's race versus Predator's race, because they had to modify humans to go up against the Covenant because they couldn't do anything against the Covenant. There was no way. That's why,
Chief needs all that just to match Arbiter.
Exactly. He needs all of that. And I think, I think that was the point they were trying to drive home, is if a Spartan gets enough accustomed to his skeletal structure and things like that, you can overcome those obstacles. I mean, Chief can go into, I mean, we've seen it done time and time again. He can, play Halo on Legendary. That's Chief. Chief is doing all of that. You are making him do all of that. He is an animal. Yeah. He's insane.
It's not you playing. It's the game telling Chief. You where to put your fingers.
Yeah. Exactly. Now
he's Chuck Norris.
literally, whenever we see him without his helmet, it's going to be Chuck Norris, Big Chuck and himself,
100%.
So now we get down to, I think there's so many variables here, and we've kind of done an interesting thing. We have pitted Arbiter's active camouflage against Predator's active camouflage. We've distinguished that Predator's active camouflage is better, but that's with our perception as just regular human beings. We aren't Spartans. So who is to say that Chief, because I mean, we saw Chief see Arbiter, Arbiter's whatever, there's a reason it works so well against regular humans because they can't see it. So who's to say that Predator's perception of Arbiter's tech, he's like, oh, you're an idiot. But Chief can see both of them.
Conceivably, I mean, possibly,
so it kind of throws something interesting. I do think, like you said, Predator is a hunter, and I think to be a successful hunter, you have to put yourself in situations where you cannot be seen. Even if you're out in the open, you would want to conceal yourself as much as possible.
Yeah.
So I think it's time that we maybe start painting the picture as to what we think would happen, because I have kind of a clear idea in my head, and I'm gonna paint the picture for you, and you tell me, you can pick it apart if you want. Tell me like what problems you see. Okay.
Okay. I love it.
Let me see the whole thing first. So I think, out of fairness, I don't think anyone is hunting another. I think that, both sources, to put them on even playing fields, and at the start, they hear rumors about whatever, the Predator has heard wind throughout the galaxy of this Master Chief. And it seems like he is that seems like a worthy challenge for the mighty Predator, right? But knowing Chief, he's got to have his right hand by his side. Peak Chief, I think, is arguably with the Arbiter. You play Halo 3 with Arby, it's like, oh, this is freaking awesome, right? So I think they finally meet on, they finally see each other, on playing, just out of regular. And I think it would make the most sense for the Predator. Maybe there's a few different scenarios, but I think the coolest one would be for Predator to see them, and then them to kind of just stumble upon him, or you're like, no, hey, something's wrong, we're being hunted type thing. But if we're gonna, do you want me to go with that one? Because I personally would like them to just be out in the open seeing each other, but I don't feel like that's realistic to say what would happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The hunting aspect of it is really cool. Really cool. And let's be honest, it's probably the most realistic, I would think, just because I don't really see anybody ever getting the drop on Predator.
Yeah, I agree. And
nothing seems to ever nothing really ever seems to surprise Predator.
I got it.
What I guess I should get at.
I got it. So let's do that. Arby and Chief are on their guard. They're walking through the whatever, and they know, that maybe they're kind of noticing something on their scanners where it's just a slight movement. Predator, is doing the whole viewing thing. He can see them very clearly, and he's like, oh, this is going to be easy. So he goes after Chief, right? First, targets Chief. But Chief, as we just established, he has increased corneal senses. His sensory is better. So if he sees that red laser coming at him, he knows, oh, frick. I think it's realistic for a Predator to realistically take a shot at Chief, but for him to be able to avoid it. I don't think
I think so too.
I don't think it's
100%.
so fast. So then at this point in time, Arby and Chief are like, oh crap. They both take cover, are kind of looking around. Arby initiates he has a general idea of where the blast came from. Arby initiates his active camo. Well, little does he know that the Predator has, switched the visor to be able to see heat signatures. And now, put two and two together. You know what I mean? I think it's realistic to say by the time it takes Arbiter to get into a position where he's kind of looking, Predator already has the leg up. He's positioned himself in such a way to where he can get one shot off on Predator or on Arby. But in that time, so ladies and gentlemen, Arbiter is dead. Arbiter is essentially, he's gone.
Well, do we want to say that? Do we want to say that plasma cannon kills Arbiter in one shot? If you think about it, we've already talked about it. Arbiter and the Covenant's weapons are similar. Not the same, but similar. But so their defenses would be similar in terms of.
It's true. But here's my thing. If you put a plasma rifle or a plasma sniper, right on the head of a freaking elite, what happens?
Probably not a lot for the elite anymore after that.
Yeah. It's usually one shot. it's hard for me, because I want to say, oh, and I mean, I think it depends on which elite you're talking about. Cause I mean, sometimes they have helmets on and that can like change it, but Arbiter doesn't really have a lot going on there. He's a
No, I mean, part of it is supposed to be that he's not very heavily armored.
Yeah, that's kind of my thing.
Pardon
so it's
me.
like, it's all right. I mean, if he's targeted in his head, we've established how big that blast is. Not only is it like a Nerf dart, but it's a big blast. Like, I think it's realistic to say if anyone gets the drop on Arbiter, it's going to be Predator, and that plasma cannon, man, like
just shreds him.
I think it's one shot personally.
I see where you're coming from. It just makes me sad because I want to see Arbiter's energy sword. I want to see Arbiter's energy sword in this fight. You know what I mean?
For the sake of the argument, okay, we can go both ways. We'll go choose your own adventure. It takes down his shield. We're not going to say it one-shots him, but it has like broken his shield and he has been seriously injured, like hardcore.
Okay.
Maybe his shield was just strong enough because he does have a plasma shield. We have established that. I mean, kind of like how just like the Mjolnir, does have a shield. But he is severely wounded. And if that blast didn't kill him, he's going to be very out of sorts. I mean, he might not even be combat. He may not even be able to stand a chance in a fight. He may be done. But we'll leave him alive. I was really hoping we could kill him in one shot, but for the sake of the argument, we'll leave him alive. But for lack of a better word, he's a vegetable, so it doesn't really matter. I mean, yeah, come on. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
no, I'm telling you, I agree with you. I see where you're coming from.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. There's just, the only thing that I don't know is what is the makeup of that gun?
Yeah. That is true.
And
well, you know what? Keep talking. I'm going to look something up really fast. Keep continuing with that.
Okay. And then, what's the makeup of a Covenant shield? Because, I mean, the shields that the Covenant used were really, really good at blocking their own weapons. Right? I mean, that's what they were made for. Why wouldn't you design a sword if you didn't design a shield? So I don't know. I feel like it's a plasma-based shield stopping a plasma-based round. And then that means that there would be more defense against it. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm devil's advocate.
You're gonna love it. I'm glad we looked at this because this is the beauty of the show. It says, here's what it says about the plasma caster. Okay, this is verbatim.
Okay.
A long-range shoulder-mounted weapon that fires bolts of concentrated plasma at targets, aided by a complex targeting system and the user's biomask. Among the most powerful weapons at a predator's disposal, they are often viewed as dishonorable and discarded when a predator enters into single combat with a foe that they deem worthy. Their power can be modified for weaker discharges, and if they are badly damaged or disconnected, they can be modified to be used as a handheld plasma pistol. So it has a wide range of capabilities, but
yeah,
the biggest thing that jumps out to me about that thing is it's viewed as dishonorable.
Yeah. And like we said earlier, he's a hunter first.
So
I mean, the whole point and purpose of his being is to stay honorable.
And whenever we see him murk those guys in the Predator movie, it's very easy for him to be like, oh, well, you're a nobody, like whatever, yeah, I'm going to use this pistol. I'm going to use this plasma caster because it's easy. Right.
Not going to say that about Chief.
He's not going to say that about Chief, and he sure as crap isn't going to say that about Arbiter, because he's going to see Arbiter's active camo and be like, wait a minute, what now? Excuse me? So this changes everything.
He sees Arbiter's active camo and sword, and Predator goes, yep, let's go.
Challenge
Me
accepted,
and you, buddy.
Literally. This changes everything.
Be the scariest game of hide and seek in the forest you've ever played in your life. You're invisible, he's invisible, you both have pokey sticks.
Well, yeah, literally. And I mean, you think about it, Arbiter, I mean, the Covenant, that exact same premise is there. Like honor and like vanquishing your...
No, they're very samurai-esque.
Very much so.
For the elites is.
Totally. Yeah. Do we see a situation where they're like hand to hand?
One more time, you broke up a little bit there.
I said, do we
apologize.
see a situation where they're like hand to hand, like just meet each other in the open battlefield and like
Oh,
Chief just watches?
that'd be so good. That'd
Because
be
I feel like
so good.
if there's anyone that
Oh,
Chief respects, it's gonna be Arby. So like Chief will be like, okay,
yeah,
let's go for it. And Arby's
yeah.
like, no, this is my fight alone type thing. You know what I mean? Like that seems like a more realistic situation. Holy crap.
Like a Qui-Gon Jinn, Obi-Wan Kenobi, Darth Maul thing.
Exactly. But it's literally Chief is taking a sideline. Dude, we were okay,
like
ladies and
like
gentlemen.
Vegeta, Goku, and Golden Frieza. That's
Yeah.
what it's more like.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's kind of, man, that's a really good comparison, actually. We were going to go into this conversation saying, oh yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, it's Chief versus Predator at the end of this, right? I think now that we're talking about it, I think in a hand-to-hand combat situation, Predator takes his mask off. Arby like basically takes his armor off and is like, okay, let's freaking go. You know what I mean?
That'd be a nuts fight.
That would be insane. So now the question comes down to who wins. Like who wins? Chief is like, okay, because I mean, realistically, Chief is thinking of a million different ways now to take care of this situation. Should Arbiter die? You know what I mean? And like, should he step in if he has to? This is hard though. I mean,
the honorability throws a huge wrench into the plan because we don't know at what point there's a limit on that.
Yeah,
you know,
that's true.
Is it just the Predator's going to say, okay, fine, I don't want to use the gun. Boom, bam. I'm just going to not use it for this. And everything else is still on the table. Well, I mean, in that case, he's still got other stuff that he can do.
Yeah, I mean, and I think realistically, I think he's going to keep his blade, right?
And
he has
also
a spear
got trip
too.
mines.
Yeah, he's got all kinds of stuff.
He's got nets, bolas, all kinds of other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think, man, yeah, I mean, he's got that net gun still, which we know that thing is like no joke.
Super noise.
Frick. Okay, so let's break down the gear really fast.
Okay, here in my head, this is what Arbiter has. Arbiter has a covenant carbine.
Okay.
A plasma rifle.
Okay.
A full complement of plasma grenades.
Okay.
Okay. And then I would like to give him one little extra thing, something, like a needler. I would like for him to have that, or like a energy sword, something. I don't care. But
I think a sword. I think a sword makes more sense.
You're right. That, as I said, that made the most sense. So carbine, plasma rifle, energy sword, invisibility, full complement of plasma grenades.
Okay. I think Arbiter wins this fight.
Really?
Yep.
I don't know. See, Arbiter's great in combat, but Predator never really takes it to combat
until it comes down to, oh, you are a worthy opponent.
No, you're right.
He goes toe to toe. He goes toe to toe.
That's an immeasurable. That's the problem. That's an immeasurable. We can't quantify that. We can't quantify what his honor is going to force him to do. Because if his honor just forces him to disregard his one gun, one shoulder mounted rifle, Predator all day long. He can see Arbiter. Arbiter can't see him. He has a whole host of trap making ability and stuff that he can do. I mean, the one like pro I would put in Arbiter's column would be the energy sword versus Predator's sword. The energy sword wins. It's a lightsaber. Predator's sword's not a lightsaber. It's just a knife.
Yeah. Well, and I guess I'm thinking more in terms of like, if this is like a close quarters battle where it's like, okay, they have both said like, oh, you want to fight basically. And maybe there is a sense of like hand to hand type, like toe to toe type things. Cause we saw that in Alien versus Predator, right? Like he does do that. And correct me if I'm wrong. Doesn't he give, in Predator 2, doesn't he give his shoulder cannon, or one of them gives a shoulder cannon to someone in the movie?
The only time I remember that happening was Alien versus Predator, the first one, where the black chick gives his shoulder cannon to the Predator. I don't remember the Predator giving anybody a shoulder cannon.
Yeah. Okay. I'm yeah. Either way, though, I mean,
Well, I mean, your article did make mention of the fact that if it was damaged or weakened in any way, it could become a hand plasma pistol. But I just don't see in my head the whole honor dictates I can't use this. Just to me says, all right, fine, I won't use this one thing.
yeah, no, yeah, that's true. But so, I mean, we're going to go off of things that we can quantify. I think if the goal is to hunt the prey, I think he could realistically lead with like the net gun. I think that's a
Mhm.
very, resourceful tool. But if he's going to like, I don't think he's going to shoot it and then wait to see what happens. I think he's going to shoot it and be ready like to do anything. You know what I mean? But I think if Arby finds himself in that situation, he just pulls the plasma sword out and cuts that. Now, do we think it's realistic to say after he cuts himself out of that net that Predator has basically just been charging at him? Because we've seen him do stuff like we've seen that race do stuff like that before. So, I mean, I think if he's deeming, let's just say for the sake of conversation, he has deemed Arbiter worthy because he sees that he has the active camouflage and he's like, wait a minute, like this reminds, I know this, like I see what you have.
Active
right?
camo and a sword, I can get behind that.
Exactly. Like, okay, this has now become, it's kind of like whenever Hulk and Thanos went toe to toe, right? You know, Thanos could have toasted him if he wanted to, and he did, you know what I mean? But he made it a challenge. And I think that's kind of what they're trying to play into is that I think we're trying to play into is both of these characters have that sense of hubris and
want to challenge themselves.
It's in their blood to do that. So my thing here's my thing as to why I think Arbiter wins. If Predator leads with that net gun and it has become a thing of we're going toe to toe, this is happening, he's going to charge at Arby because he's going to anticipate Arby has something up his sleeve. Let's say he tackles Arby, whatever, after they've come into it, they're trading blows, whatever. I think, and let's say for whatever reason, like Arby's sword gets kind of pushed aside, right? Predator still has his blade, but Arby still has a light shield on. So if he gets pierced, that's still going to take some of the recoil, I guess, away. I feel like that would give Arby enough time to think on his feet and be like, oh, here, take this. I mean, we gave him full sticky grenades.
Yeah. Stuck.
Predator's like, what's that? Arbiter, like, even if he did get damaged by that grenade a little bit, there's still a really good chance that he's still alive. That Arbiter's still alive.
But all of this is predicated on the point that we're assuming Predator honors the Arbiter.
Totally.
Which may not even happen.
That's true. He could look at his active camo and be like, oh, well, I can still see you. You know what I mean?
Weak.
Yeah, exactly.
You're obviously not good enough to keep up with me. Good night.
Now, so that kind of goes back to my original point then is if he figures out a way to get the edge up on Arby, I think Arby does find himself in a situation of frick, I'm dispatched. So if he's not gonna look at Arby as honorable, who he might view as honorable?
Oh yeah.
Master Chief.
Definitely.
So now I think it does come back to that question. We went down the rabbit hole of Arby versus Predator. I don't think it's realistic to say that Arby comes out on top. Maybe sometimes. Maybe.
Out of 100, let's say Predator wins 75.
Yeah, I think that's fair for Predator just versus Arby.
Arbiter.
Now, when we bring Chief into it, Chief is going to be tracking this guy the second he fires that cannon.
Oh, yeah.
And Chief can run 55.
Chief becomes aware.
Yeah. It's over. So Chief can run 55 miles an hour or kilometers an hour. Excuse me. He can run very, very fast. If he's trying to basically flank the Predator and Predator has essentially dispatched, Arby in a way, let's say Arby's not dead, but he's critically wounded. Chief is going to use that sensor to be able to find the Predator. He's going to go headlong flight into Predator and they're going to take a tumble. And I think it kind of ultimately boils down to the same situation, although now Chief is at a disadvantage. If he gets net gunned, Chief's trapped. How does Chief get out? Is he just so strong and his armor is so tough? I mean, I think it's realistic to say he could probably break out of that given his, enhancements.
I don't know.
And his armor.
It cut that Xenomorph armor in Alien versus Predator. It cuts the Xenomorph's armor. That net gun does.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, I mean, it's a really
And
strong.
Xenomorph armor is supposed to be pretty hardcore, right? I mean, we talked about
Yeah, we
that.
talked about this. The Xenomorph has an exoskeleton. Um, but still, I mean, I think it is kind of similar, but I guess Chief's armor technically is kind of an exoskeleton. I mean, I guess we add another layer to it though, in terms of like Chief's armor is basically like a plasma shield.
Oh yeah.
So whenever
Well, and he has a shield. He
yeah,
has a
I
shield.
mean, he does. So I mean, if that discharges, does that, you know, does that necessarily negate the effects of the thing? I don't know. I still kind of stick to Chief could totally break out of that net if he wanted to. I,
Yeah.
I mean,
That's to say if he even gets caught in the net, though, which
yeah,
I would
that
have a
is
hard
true.
time even get.
That's true. Because I mean, if he's going to be able to dodge the plasma shot, he'll be able to dodge the net or
Hmm.
figure out a way around it. So yeah, I think
Hmm. And then too, in the up close and personal knockdown, drag out in your mouth fighting, I don't give near as much of an edge to Predator against Chief as I did with Arbiter, because
absolutely
Chief's
not.
armor is going to make a big difference up close like that. Chief is just as strong, if not stronger than Predator,
Yeah.
just as fast. You know, every time Chief hits Predator, it's going to hurt Predator. The same cannot be said for Predator hitting Chief. I'm not saying he can't eventually get through that armor and do damage to John in there, but every time, I mean, Chief's going to be stabbing him and ripping him and breaking him every single, which way to Sunday while
It
he's
would
trying to
take a
do that.
lot. He's not an agile
Mhm.
fighter. Predator is not an agile fighter. And I mean, you have to remember, Chief fell from space. He fell from space
Mhm.
and lived. So
Mhm.
there's no way that you can tell me that Chief can, survive a giga impact like that,
Yeah.
and that Predator is just as strong as that. Now, do we see a situation where Predator is like, boom, 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 really like taking him to Pound Town type thing? Maybe, but also I've also seen Predator fight, and I just don't think that he out reflexes Chief. I don't.
Nope.
There's no
Mm-mm.
way.
Nope.
I mean, anything that Predator throws it at Chief, I think he's going to be able to like see coming from a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
Which,
And honestly, that plasma cannon's cool. And 100% of all the weapons in this scenario, it does the most damage. But if the Predator pulls up that little red light and tries to use it on Chief with a battle rifle, Chief will be just fine.
yeah, totally. And I mean, we've
I'm
already
not saying he's going to be able to just stand there and go toe to toe with him, but Chief knows better. Chief knows what to do. Chief will be just fine with a battle rifle in that situation.
Chief outmaneuvers him in terms of like hand to hand combat.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not at, I mean, probably is just as, like you said, just as strong as Predator.
I wouldn't doubt it.
Weapon maneuverability. I mean, if it were me playing as Chief, I would rush that guy. Like he has no shields. Are you kidding me? Okay,
Yeah.
he's
No.
basically a brute. You're shooting him with the
Yeah.
AR. It's like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
10 feet away. Click. Here's a nade. You're done. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
man, yeah, I mean, but before we decide, like for sure, Arbiter gets wasted. Like he does. That there is no way. I just don't see a scenario. I mean, unless Chief just immediately knew where he was. I mean, do we want to say that Arbiter does survive, or is Arbiter dead?
I, I I don't know. Honestly, I would love to see that fight.
Yeah,
Predator versus Arbiter. I think that would be really interesting and entertaining AF.
yeah,
Honestly, I mean that could be really cool. Just to
yeah,
just in my head, I just see Predator dropped off by some omnipotent hand on one side of a forest, and RB dropped off by some omnipotent hand on the other side, and then he's on the other side. Go find him. Go kill him. That would be awesome. That would
yeah.
be super awesome.
That
But
would be cool.
Arbiter loses. Arbiter loses. I really do think so.
Yeah, it's frustrating because it would be entertaining, and it's kind of reminds me of like Naruto, like when Kakashi the second time that Team Seven, like they're kind of like in a match of like cat and mouse a little bit, and like, or no, it's the first time whenever they're kind of like all hiding around the forest and Kakashi like is able to sneak up on all of them. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
Kind of
yeah, yeah,
reminds me of
yeah.
something like that. I think in terms of hunting, yeah, Predator wins. I think,
For
with in
sure.
that situation. But
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like the plasma shot, right? I've been shot with the plasma rifle before, the plasma sniper as playing as Arbiter, and he lived through that. And if we're giving the plasma shot the same amount of power, it doesn't matter if it's bigger. It's still, I mean, you could argue that the sniper shot is more powerful. So I think it
Mhm.
definitely incapacitates him for this fight, but I don't think it actually does kill him now that we've talked through it.
But I think
Predator, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think we've kind of lost sight of the fact that push come to shove, Predator is dangerous. I mean, he's a murderer. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? He's a serial killer, a universal serial killer. He is
Yeah.
dangerous, and he doesn't put himself in situations where he knows he's going to lose.
Yeah. I mean,
if Predator, every time Predator's found himself in a situation where he's going to lose, he just turns invisible, steps back, and walks away.
yeah, it's true. Or blows everything else up.
Or just says, done.
I think a more realistic thing
reset.
is I think if he knows that RB is down, but he still sees vital signs, he's probably more likely to throw the spear or throw the net gun and be like, all right, you're done.
Just to make sure.
Arbiter's dead. He's done. That's you make a really good point. He's not trying to wound his prey. He's trying to kill his prey, and he's killed a lot of things in the galaxy. But like you say, when push comes to shove, Chief versus Predator, I don't think Chief loses. I don't see a situation.
I think Chief's adaptability ensures his victory. Like, I don't want to sound like a butthole when I say that, but that's genuinely how I feel. Like, Chief is so good at so many different situations that he would be okay.
We see like all of these, things, like all of the detailed descriptions as to what Chief has at his disposal to work with. It is far superior to what Predator has, period.
And that's not to say that Predator couldn't win. I think the most important situation in any Predator versus Chief fight would be initial contact.
Totally.
If Predator could kill Chief in that first 10 seconds, great. But that's the only chunk of time that Predator has to kill Chief. I think after that, there's no chance.
And I think arguably Chief's defensive systems are more complex than the Arbiter's. Like, I think, and not even just
the
armor.
Bigger, his shield's better.
Not even just the armor, but like his actual bones and like organs and the way he's put together. Even if Predator got a shot off, Chief is very much has, plenty of go juice left in the fight. And I think we've determined that whoever comes, like the person that comes out on top in this situation is Master Chief. And I personally think that he ends it with a plasma grenade. Like, I think that makes the most sense for him to be like, Predator's just throwing everything he's got at him and is like, and then Chief's like, all right, check this out. Pulls out the AR and is, soaking it up. He's running full speed, spraying bullets. Predator's like, ow, like frick, and then as soon as he's close enough, throws it because Predator has no armor. He's just a meaty boy. You know what I mean? As soon as he gets within range, a precision plasma grenade right on Predator. You could see, you can paint the picture in your head. Predator like just cocks his head sideways, like, what is this? Boom! You know what I mean? Done. Literally.
BEWM.
Now, there is kind of something that comes into question. Plasma has certain effects on electronics, right? That's the whole point with the plasma shields. We know Predators are all equipped with that bomb. Do we see there being some sort of reactive explosion from that bomb because of the plasma grenade?
I don't think so. I think it's too big a bomb. That's not the kind of thing you leave up to chance.
Yeah, that's true. There's probably not a lot of volatile.
Like a nuclear missile, you can drop it and it doesn't blow up.
Yeah, that's true.
Very certain things have to occur.
Yeah,
in that
there's
process
a process
before that.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's probably fair. At the end of the day, it's probably just like a giant battery. You know what I mean?
Like, really more than anything, it just charges till it can't. Reaches a critical point.
I think we have it. I think at the end of the day, Master Chief comes out on top. And this who would win?
To agree.
Arbiter.
But I would say best movie in the world. 4-man team, UNSC Spartans, stuck on an alien planet, hunted down by a predator.
That'd be pretty crazy.
Wouldn't that be a nuts? The predators know they're there, and so they're just going to hunt those Spartans, and the Spartans are totally unaware and just trying to find a way off this planet. That would be an awesome movie.
Would be awesome. I mean, or an awesome game. Like, that would be a pretty cool game.
That'd be a scary game.
Yeah. I mean, they have that new Predator game where one person plays as the Predator, and like there's like a team of like people, and like it's 1v4. You know what I mean? It's like the Predator game.
They had Evolve. Evolve was like, that was great.
Yeah, kind of cool. But we were gonna end it. I think out of 100 times, I think 90 out of 100 times Master Chief wins this.
I would agree.
And I mean, we've talked this to death. We've talked a lot about it. But as I said before, the way we were going to end this was, oh, yeah, so-and-so comes out on top. But as I said before, we're on a strange planet. And then out of nowhere, a freaking Xenomorph has been watching the whole thing and just, right through the chest. And, stalks his prey. There's an entire colony of Xenomorphs. That's how we were going to end it. And I'm glad we didn't, because this is much cooler. But there's a lot of interesting stuff. This has by far been the best one that we've done so far, I think, because I think so. Just because there's so much left up to. I feel like we brought more factual evidence and made more decisions based off of factual evidence rather than, I don't know, I think, their temperament would make them make X, Y, and Z decision. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's a fair thing. We say, and that honorability or honorable curveball that we got right there in the middle was just awesome. Oh yeah, because I did my homework a little bit, but I didn't even think about that point. I'm glad we reread that, because I mean, no, for sure, I agree. It is a good. Thank you for your time as always, Tristan. We have more. Thank you. You're welcome. I'll say you're welcome. We have a lot of things coming up, ladies and gentlemen, on the Wannabe Critic podcast. We still have so many matches to go through on who would win, but I have a whole list on my phone. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to talk about, but in the meantime, you can hear, us talk about other things on the podcast feed, as well as what we talk about over at Game Club. Me and Tristan, as I said before, we're doing a little project called the Halo Project. Over on Game Club, where we will be going through the Halo franchise and giving our thoughts on that. So make sure you tune into that. But Tristan, I'm afraid I've taken up enough of your time today. It's been like 3 hours, and I'm sure your wife misses you. So yeah, she's just been looking at me going, whenever we get into it, we get into it, but no, can't help it, man. Nerd out. You got to nerd out. And I appreciate, the bi-monthly format where we sit down for a couple of hours to talk about nerd stuff has really been working out really good. So thank you for your time. I'm going to go ahead and let you go. And thank you for all you listeners out there. Thank you for preparing yourselves for a plethora of hot takes and potentially unpopular opinions. I feel like the phrase fits the best here on who would win. So there's that. We'll see you next time. Say goodbye, Tristan. Later. Whatever possessed you to check out the podcast or the YouTube channel today, I just want to say thank you so much for doing so. If this is your first time here, I would appreciate it, if you would consider subscribing. As you can tell, it's not just me here anymore. I mean, I do stuff by myself, but the podcast is going to reside here from now on, in video form. So if you want to see more content, if you want to be notified, every time we post something, whether it be a clip, a podcast, a review, an interview, whatever it may be, if it's gaming stuff, make sure you click that bell and hit the subscribe button, and we will see you next time. Thanks for sticking around, and thank you for preparing yourselves for a plethora of hot takes and potentially unpopular opinions. I'm Gabriel Fast. I will always be the Wannabe Critic.